Welcome to Tech Talks. I'm Holly Scott. Today I have the pleasure of chatting with Karen Cronholm, the CEO and co-founder of Akina. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be here with you today, Holly.
Well, I've been fascinated with the technology and with you since we've met over the last year through MedTech Innovator. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. This technology really caught my eye, though, because it's a smart needle, and it seems like it has not only tremendous application in your first indication you're going after, which I'm sure you're going to dig into, but as I think bigger picture, pretty excited about what could be of this type of platform. So before we get into what's magical about Akina, maybe you could share with us a bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to. So I actually am a scientist by training. I started out behind the bench and spent a bunch of years actually working in quality and then research and development, and really love that work. Really passionate about science, and really digging into a lot of the devices that I worked in, worked with. Just really helped people, and really wanted to start my career out with being in the healthcare space, and eventually working on products to improve the lives of patients, as well as physicians. But over my career journey, I really got interested in working more with customers. I was very passionate about wanting to help solve their problems for them, and I wanted to get closer to that experience, with patients and with physicians. And actually went back to school part time, got my MBA, and then actually got into marketing. So spent several years working in the marketing space, specifically product management, which allowed me to help understand those customer problems and patient problems and translate those back into solutions, that we could make in terms of medical devices. More recently, I've been spending my time in medical aesthetics. I have about 15 years of experience working in the aesthetic industry, and found myself working at Citrellis, where we had developed a device actually for wrinkle reduction. So it was a groundbreaking new technology, and became the CEO there, and brought that technology from its early stages through to an FDA clearance and then a market introduction.
Phenomenal. I see a lot of opportunity for individuals as they move from that product mindset into leading organizations. I think it gives you a real unique vantage point from understanding the customer need, really defining that product market fit, and understanding the product team itself and bringing it back and being that really overall translator, so to speak.
Yeah, I love being in that role and spent a lot of time there throughout my career. And I really think that helped me become a CEO, and really launch smoothly, into that, make that transition, because I do understand customers, what their needs are, which are so important, to develop products that meet those needs. And also, to understand the product development, the internal side of the company as well. There's some special skill sets you need there too, to bring technologies to life, especially as we have to work with the FDA and get our devices cleared through the FDA. There's a lot of important things to really think about as we bring products to life in this medical device space.
There's a gentleman I follow, a professor, Scott Galloway, out of New York, I believe, and I caught something very interesting yesterday, and he said one of the most important skills of today for our youth growing up is the ability to tell a story. It's not STEM, it's not math, it's not science, it's not art, it's the ability to tell a story, because the ability to engage, collaborate, and bring someone to the same page as you can make the difference between a sale or not, a partnership or not, and the like. So it sounded so simple and just made me think of that. So very, very fascinating. So what brought you to Akina?
So I co-founded Akina with Dr. Molly Warner, who's a dermatologist. But really, the origins of Akina are actually at MGH, and I'm located here in Boston. And so the MGH photomedicine group, or the Wellman Center, which is run by Dr. Rox Anderson, has been behind some phenomenal inventions in the dermatology space. So Dr. Molly Warner works with Dr. Rox Anderson and also Dr. Gary Tierney, and they really came up with the idea, the invention that is now the product, the Smart Needle that you mentioned earlier that we've developed here at Akina. And that invention really came out of a need to address complications with dermal filler products. So it wasn't necessarily, a technology looking for a solution. They really wanted to come up with a way to help patients prevent complications from dermal fillers. And maybe just a little bit about dermal fillers to help understand these complications. Dermal fillers are wonderful products. They're typically made of hyaluronic acid, and they're very popular and used to reduce wrinkles and prevent sort of hollowing out or loss of volume in the aging face. And they create these wonderful results for patients, but they can also cause some devastating complications for patients if they're accidentally injected into blood vessels. So it can cause blindness, skin necrosis, and even stroke. So it's really unfortunate when this happens, and it's really difficult for physicians that are injecting these dermal fillers to try and prevent this. So even experienced injectors can have these vascular complications from these dermal fillers when they're accidentally injected into a blood vessel, because we're all individuals, and our blood vessels are just in slightly different locations. So they know the anatomy, but if they're off by just a little bit where they think the blood vessel might be, they can cause these complications. So it's a complication that really keeps these physicians up at night, and they worry about it. Certainly they want the best results, for their patients. And that's where Akina comes in. So we invented a smart needle to detect these blood vessels and then inform the injector of the blood vessel location, so they can avoid these blood vessels and hopefully prevent these kinds of complications for patients.
That's fascinating. It seems like I love the no-brainer type technologies. It's like, of course you would use that if you had an opportunity to. And I was blown away by the size of this market. I knew derma fillers were popular. I'm in South Florida, for instance, and that it goes without saying, but second to Botox, I mean, they're incredibly common. The global market's 5 billion in size and growing at a double-digit 10% plus rate. So we're talking about a significant and high growth market that's already being utilized and has majority adoption. So how frequent are these complications? How often are they hitting these blood vessels?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely something that we see as a value add technology to really help prevent these complications, and just help physicians sleep at night and give them some peace of mind. They're really concerned about the fact that these complications are on the rise. So, for instance, there was just a recent publication looking at these complications that have occurred over the past 5 years. So in just the past 5 years, blindness, the rate of blindness has increased by 509%
Wow.
in some of these high risk areas.
Mm.
And the neurological complications have more than doubled in that 5 year period. So as more patients are interested in, having these filler procedures, looking better, feeling better about themselves, unfortunately, the complications have increased significantly for a lot of these patients.
My goodness. And in the face, I would assume the vasculature is extremely small. And so are the clinicians now just looking? I mean, are they looking? Are they feeling? How are they figuring out where to inject today?
Yeah, so there are some landmarks, to really locate where certain key blood vessels are that they want to avoid. For instance, there are some higher risk areas. So any area that you inject on the face is considered, potential risk. But there are some areas, like for instance, along the nose. You have a key blood vessel alongside your nose that folks want to avoid. The forehead can be a tricky area, or the temples
Hmm.
as well. So they're really going based on their knowledge of anatomy. There are some devices out there like ultrasound, which can be used, but these involve image interpretation, which is really difficult. I'm sure you're familiar with how an ultrasound image, would look. And so it's hard to distinguish that blood vessel from the surrounding tissue. And the challenge with these devices as well is that you need an extra person in the room with you to do the scans and hold the device. And so it's very costly and time consuming for physicians to even implement something like this. So we had that in mind when we designed our product. So it's much more simple. We interpret the image. I should say, there is no image interpretation. We take that work out of the equation for the injector, and our technology uses an algorithm to interpret data from the tip of our customized needle to signal the physician. So think sort of a blinking or flashing light to let them know if they're in a blood vessel.
Hmm.
So really, I've tried to make it as simple as possible and as integrated as possible into the injector's workflow.
Hmm. That's fascinating. So will this will this will this how does the cost of developing this product and compare to a traditional needle? Because I'm sure that's got to factor into cost, and overall, of course, this is more of a cash pay, which is an interesting model in itself. So maybe going back to the granular level, more intelligence. It sounds like more dollar signs. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So we certainly have a very cost efficient model in terms of our product development. Our device is not that complicated. It's definitely sophisticated, but we can keep costs down. That allows us to keep our costs down, so that we're not talking about a big cost increase to incorporate this into the procedure. And we also validated that with a market survey that we conducted. So we've spoken with dermatologists as well as plastic surgeons who commonly inject these dermal filler products. And 100% of them was basically unanimous, said that they were concerned about these complications. They also said that they didn't believe that there was a reliable way to detect blood vessels, and that there was really a big unmet need here. And they also said that they would buy our product. And that's, I think, was really compelling for us. And I'm really glad that we get that kind of feedback, from dermatologists and plastic surgeons, because so generally speaking, they really see our product as adding peace of mind, and they said they would pay more for that security. As you can imagine, it's quite devastating if a patient does have these complications from an injection that they've performed. Some of them have related to me the challenges that causes for the patient. It's basically an all stop for them to focus on this patient and try and address the complications. If the blood vessel is occluded by dermal filler, often the patients don't realize it until they've gone home, and things start to feel strange, or maybe they have some blurry vision, and that's it's almost too late to try and rectify that for the patient. But they do try and solve the issue for them. And unfortunately, if you have a blood vessel that's occluded and it does cause blindness, only about 68% of patients, or I should say 68% of patients do become permanently blind. And so only a small amount have some partial recovery of their vision in that case. So physicians will, jump through hoops to work on these patients. They've, canceled plans, travel plans. One physician in particular mentioned this happened around the holidays, and she completely canceled her holiday parties, and had travel plans, and basically was at the hospital helping the patient try and recover from the issue. So it's just such a traumatic experience. And I think that's something that physicians are looking for any help, to provide them with, an ounce of security to try and avoid these kinds of issues.
Wow. In the way dermal fillers currently work, which, excuse my naivety, but I haven't had any. So I'm curious, is it a situation where it's packaged, where is it a pre-filled syringe is it sold together?
Yeah, so right now, dermal fillers are typically sold in a pre-filled syringe.
Okay.
The beauty of our device is that it's so small, it can be fastened on to that pre-filled syringe, or any standard syringe for that matter. We have just a standard Warlock connection.
Okay.
So basically, you can just take our needle, our smart needle, and fasten that on instead of the standardized needle that you would typically use
Okay.
while you're doing the injections. And our device is very small, it's about this big. And so it's super compact and designed to just seamlessly, integrate into that physician workflow.
Okay. And I assume it's like using any other needle. There's no time for them they don't need practice. It's seamless. Pick it up and
Correct.
use it. Yeah.
They just use our needle, and it will inform them if they're in a blood vessel. And in that case, they would move along to a different location, before they inject.
Hmm. Where are we clinically with the product right now?
So we're at the preclinical stage.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done a lot of great work over the past year. We've developed a next generation prototype to really flesh out the technology and really work on making sure that our product is going to be as accurate and precise as we can get it. And part of that was doing some animal testing. And so we have done over 100 tissue tests, different types of tissue tests, to make sure that our technology, can see the difference between blood vessels and the other tissues. And we use that data to train an algorithm. So we have a customized algorithm that creates this flashing light, or think of it as a no go or go signal to indicate the blood vessel location.
So is this like other technologies I'm seeing that are data centric, that get more and more powerful the more clinicals you run, because they learn and learn and learn and continue to add a larger sample size?
Yeah, exactly. So the more data we generate, the better we can train our algorithm to be more precise and accurate. And that's the plan. We'll continue to do some more preclinical testing, but we're looking forward to generating some more data there,
Mm-hmm.
but also starting some human clinical trials, so pilot studies in 2025.
Okay, great. And I know from our discussions, you've been incredibly lean and quite fiscally responsible. So that's great news for a young company and potential investors or individuals who are considering your organization and following them. Tell us more about this consumer pay model, and especially with a pre-filled injectable. So is this from a business perspective, is it important for you to start developing relationships not only with the consumer, so they know that this is out there at some point, maybe not today, but in some point in the road, as well as other organizations like the dermafillers, the major dermafiller manufacturers? Do they know you're on the radar yet? Is this part of your strategy?
Yeah, so what is great about working in the aesthetic dermatology space is that it is cash pay, self-pay. So we don't have to worry about reimbursement, at least with this first initial clinical application. So we do need an FDA clearance, of course, But after we gain that, we can basically start selling to physicians and injectors that are using dermal fillers. So basically, we can be sold as an accessory alongside dermal fillers. And it's usually a quite simple sales process. Often the physician or the nurse doing the injections, like they're the decision maker. So we basically, can just work with them and get them, familiar with the technology in order to start the sales process. Of course, working with key opinion leaders, dermatologists, and plastic surgeons in the community is really helpful as well. I've already reached out to a lot of them, and we've had a lot of conversations. And then actually, I'm working on pulling together a clinical advisory board with some of these key clinical researchers and also influencers within the space. But it's nice to be able to have kind of a more straightforward, simple sales process to get this product out there to help physicians and help patients quickly. It also allows us to generate revenues really quickly as well. And so it's nice to be able to ramp up quickly. You don't necessarily need a huge sales team either. And as you mentioned, there's, the filler companies, and there's also a lot of syringe and needle manufacturers out there. So I also believe that our product presents a great opportunity to partner with those dermal filler manufacturers and those syringe manufacturers. So we could potentially sell to all comers, but there's just a lot of opportunity for partnerships as well with our kind of product.
Excellent. Sounds like so many positive potential options.
Yes, exactly.
Is this considered a 510K?
Well, that's something that we're working on. So we have had some initial conversations with the FDA. I like to think that we could establish a predicate, but our technology is so unique and different. As I'm sure you can imagine, that
Sure.
that can be difficult to establish a predicate and 510K. So we might potentially be on a de novo path. Definitely in the sort of initial informal conversations we've had with the FDA, we believe will be an accessory. So there is a classification for accessory devices because you can't use our device on its own. It's designed to work with a syringe. And so that path is typically a little less onerous as well for an accessory in terms of the requirements that the FDA would be looking for, especially from the standpoint of human clinical studies.
So and something just clicked. I want to make sure I'm clear on it. So does the device go over existing syringes, or is it an all-in-one syringe with the sensor?
So basically our needle is a customized needle.
Okay.
And so there's basically our sensors are embedded into the needle itself. And the sensors themselves are right at the tip of the needle. So we can see exactly where the tip of the needle is located.
Wow.
In terms of a blood vessel or other tissues. And then we have technology. Obviously, we have some electronics that are creating that indicator light. I mentioned we have an algorithm. So we have some brains behind the operation, so to speak, that are included in a little small electronics module that can also be attached to the syringe body. So we basically have a smart needle with an electronics module that all compactly fits right and can be used using that Lure Lock connection, can be just quickly fastened on to the syringe.
Wow. That is amazing. It is amazing what can be done at the size and scale that we can see in medtech. It's absolutely fascinating. Where did the name Akina come from?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, we spent a lot of time thinking about a name for the company, but really what was top of mind for us is we were having a lot of conversations with dermatologists and plastic surgeons, and they kept on talking about how this would really bring peace of mind to them. That so peace of mind was definitely something we were thinking about. Is how can we offer that to physicians as well as patients. And that's really the root of the word Akina. Is it does mean peace, and it's just a great way, I think, to embody what we're after here at Akina, is to really provide some more peace of mind and to physicians and patients, and just create a better experience for patients with dermal fillers, but also with other clinical applications as well, where we think we can help.
I love it. I love the name. What other applications are you considering? I know this is big picture. I was just curious.
Yeah, so I'm sure you can imagine a blood vessel detection technology. You could use that in a lot of different ways. And already, we hear about a lot of ideas from folks. So, I think we have so much potential here to use our device in other areas. Of course, we really wanted to look at that dermal filler application initially. It just makes good business sense to launch in the cash pay aesthetic space, given that we can get that product into the market a little bit quicker and start generating revenues. But of course, we have in mind, and we have actually also created some designs and product concepts for other clinical applications. One that's come up actually that's in the aesthetic space as well is these large volume fat transfer procedures,
Hmm.
where it's autologous fat that's transferred into different areas of the body. And because it's large volume, there's also larger blood vessels. And if you have fat that's injected into a large blood vessel, it can cause a fat embolism. And there's actually a high mortality rate for some of these procedures. So we're looking at modifying our technology and our device to accommodate those procedures as well. Also, looking at other completely different areas, such as chemotherapy extravasation. So that's been something that's come up quite a bit. Is chemotherapy extravasation is when you're being administered chemotherapy. Sometimes the IV catheter that's used to deliver drugs peripherally, the IV can sort of pop out of the vein. So, and cause a lot of devastating complications, including tissue necrosis. So that's something we could potentially help with as well. We right now with a dermal filler application, we're trying to avoid the blood vessel, but we could let you know if you're in a blood vessel, and or if that IV catheter has dislodged from a blood vessel in the case of chemotherapy extravasation, or just in any case where you're trying to make sure you're delivering a critical drug into a blood vessel.
Mhm.
So that could be, for patients with diabetes or peripheral vascular disease where it's hard to locate veins. We could potentially help there as well. And also in emergency situations where maybe you don't have a highly skilled clinician, sort of at hand to administer critical drugs, our device could potentially help there as well. So I'm really excited about the opportunities for our product, and where we could use it in numerous applications to help people.
I am too. I think when I was really digging in and thinking about it, peripheral vascular disease came to mind. There's so many individuals who, especially those who are chronically needing drugs for whatever reason, either infusions or whatever it might be, and some of them just have extremely difficult vessels to find, either very small or they're compromised. So peace of mind, I love it. I love it. It's great. It's exciting. And thank you for spending time with us today, Karen, discussing this. This is phenomenal to see Akina's progress to date and progress ahead of you. And I'm so glad you're able to share some time with us about it.
Yes, thank you so much. Again, it was a pleasure chatting with you today, and looking forward to moving the needle forward, as it were, with Akina.
Love it. Thank you. And thanks to all of you for joining us on Tech Talks. I'm Holly Scott.